Yo, what is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, I want to talk about my biggest problems with Season 2 of NBA 2K24 MyTEAM. And there are two. It's two main issues that I think are feeding into the other problems in the game, which are the reasons that my team doesn't feel exciting and fun the way that it used to, I think. Honestly, there are three main issues, actually. But before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 15,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I'm uploading every single day, tons and tons of daily MyTEAM content. I upload like a minimum of 5 videos a day, generally 6, 7, or 8. So I'd really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So I'm going to go over these three reasons. I think there's, well, I said two, but I really do believe there are three main reasons that are making my team feel less enjoyable and less fun to play right now. And the first one is very Season 2 specific, and it's the player mode reward players. The fact of the matter is, well, it's even broader than that. There's no incentive to play the My Team mode beyond getting the cards that are in packs right now and basically just making your team better. That's basically the only incentive in my team right now, is to get MT so that you can hopefully get cards from the player market to upgrade your team, which is fine as a part of the incentive to play the game. But people do not feel incentivized to play these different game modes because the game mode rewards are not exciting. They're not good cards. We have a Ruby Mike Conley for Triple Threat Offline, and this card isn't even that terrible, but he's not good. This is not a card that gets people excited. Same thing with Clutch Offline, Eddie Johnson. Nobody who plays online game modes and doesn't really play a lot of offline has any interest in getting these cards. And I know there is an SGA at the end of the season, but you look at all these reward cards, like E is good, and there is an Amethyst Terry Dishinger who's going to be available later on this season. But in all honesty, I do expect he'll get upgraded and he'll play shooting guard, and he's going to be a really good card. But there's already a bunch of elite shooting guards. We have Paul George and Michael Jordan and so many other good shooting guards already. Brandon Roy. People aren't excited about an Amethyst. I mean, Amethyst Terry is exciting, but he's not over the top insanely exciting by any means. Clutch Online. I don't know. Cliff Robinson's the best reward this season, but even then, he's probably the 7th or 8th best center in the game. Like, the best reward in the game is not a top 5 player at his position. And then you have the Triple Threat Online reward. Bob Love, he's okay but not great. Unlimited, same thing. Chris Morris, okay but not great. These cards just aren't exciting to people, so they're not incentivized to play these game modes in the first place, especially game modes that they don't generally go into, because they don't feel like they're grinding for anything rewarding. If these players were rewarding, even if they were literally just like amethysts, they would be more rewarding to grind for. At least like a 91 overall amethyst in each of these modes would not screw up the pacing of this game at all. That's the thing. I've seen a couple people say that these mode rewards are keeping pacing. Okay, but they're not keeping pacing because they're rubies. And look at my team. Now, admittedly, I have one of the best teams in the game, but I have a team with all diamonds and amethysts. Michael Richardson is a card that's in my lineup simply because I was doing gameplay with him yesterday. He's not really in my actual team right now. My whole team is amethysts and diamonds, and yes, I have one of the better teams in the game, but even if I was a more no money spent player and didn't lock in Giannis and Shed and a couple of those guys, I would still probably have a mostly amethyst and diamond lineup, which is what most people have if they've been grinding the game a lot. They're at least going to have rubies and amethysts and a couple of diamonds with these rewards like Chris Bosh and D-Wade and some of the grindable content, some of the free content, all that type of stuff. The only reason people would really be incentivized to grind these different game modes is for Diamond SGA, who admittedly is the best point guard in the game. But even then, what's the incentive behind that? Because once you get SGA, what are you going to do the rest of the season? Go play Unlimited, and you could do that. It's fun. If whatever mode you want to play, if you have fun playing the game, that is 100% your thing. And the goal is to have fun playing the game, of course. But in the past, there was another incentive, another big incentive, honestly, to a lot of people to play my team, and that was the idea of the $250,000 tournament, other my team tournaments. There was a competitive scene in my team that was far more successful and exciting than the competitive scene now is in my team. And honestly, I think that's in large part because of the fact that there's no 250K tournament this year. People have no incentive to grind the game, try to get better, improve their team, things like that. If there was a tournament this year in anything similar to the Play Now tournament that's being run this year, which has $1 million prize pool, like 64 people are getting at least $500. It has a very large prize pool that's spread around to a lot of people. People would be so incentivized to grind my team because they'd want to have a great team. They'd want to be able to compete. They'd be competing in the qualifiers each weekend. They'd be trying to qualify, trying to win money, and having an opportunity to make a lot of money. 64 people winning at least $500 in that Play Now tourney is amazing. My team has nothing. And will there be something after the play-out tourney later this year? It's possible that there's a tournament dropped for my team later this year. I hope there is, because it will truly re-energize the second half of the year if they do drop a my team tournament at some point, even if it's not as big of a prize pool, which it won't be. But if there is a decently sized my team tournament with a significant prize pool, that will re-energize the game because people will have a motivation to play the game. So the first thing is that there's just not very much motivation to play the game, which means 2K, we need more competitive stuff. Period. We need more things to compete for, things to work towards, and the player mode rewards need to be better to incentivize people to play the modes, because right now there is no incentive whatsoever besides SGA, who is an amazing card but is a very, very long grind, so does not appeal to the whole population of the player base. It only appeals to a smaller portion of that player base. Number 2, lock-ins. If you look at my team, I don't actually have a ton of lock-ins. Giannis is a lock-in, Kawhi is a lock-in. Giannis being the lock-in also got me Magic, PG, Chet, and AK. MJ is not a lock-in. Curry was a lock-in. Shaq was a lock-in. Embiid was not. Bosch was not. AK was part of the lock-in, and then Donovan Mitchell and Brandon Roy are not either. But I have multiple big lock-in cards on my team. I did not lock in Tracy McGrady or Kevin Durant or Carmelo Anthony or Tim Duncan or any of those, and I still have a lot of lock-in cards on my team. There have been too many lock-ins to this point in the year. All the great top tier cards in the game, with the exception of very few players. There are not a ton of players that are top 3 at their position that are not gate kept behind lock-ins somehow, which is very unfortunate. 2K has done a better job as of late of dropping content that does not have to be locked in that is good. For example, Paul George, Michael Jordan, Andre Kirilenko, Joel Embiid, guys like that are all buyable that have come out in the last week or so, a little bit over a week, and are very, very good cards that can be top tier options in the game. But I still think it's a big problem that the biggest names and most popular cards, really with the exception of MJ in terms of the name recognition, are gate kept behind lock-ins already. Guys like Shaquille O'Neal, Giannis, Steph, Magic are all gate kept behind these lock-ins, Kevin Durant as well. And I'm really worried that we're gonna see a pink diamond LeBron event at the beginning of season 3 that's $200 to lock in, or I mean, these lock-ins can just keep going all throughout the year. If every single season we're getting 5 or 6 expensive lock-ins, it can make the game tough to keep up with, especially if you're not grinding a ridiculous amount, which, to be fair, I have probably not spent more money this year than I did last year to this point on my team, and I still have an amazing team, but I grind the game a lot more than I would say the majority of the player base and the people who are watching these videos are grinding the game. It is my job after all. And I just think there's way too many lock-ins, and it keeps getting talked about, but nothing has been done. And I'm not sure anything will be, because I do think it's a good way for 2K to bring in money. And I don't totally hate it as much when it's something like this freaky lock-in, because of the fact this gave you so many good cards. Paul George and Andre Kirilenko are amazing. There's a bunch of good salary cap budget cards in here as well. There were some good free rewards as well, Sean Livingston and Steve Smith especially. And then you have the Chet Holmgren set, which also is pretty good. Page is a great card. Michael Ray Richardson is a really good budget card. Chet is a top tier card in the game. You get a lot of elite cards from this Giannis set in a way that I wouldn't honestly say the KD set really did. Even the Shaq set, while it was closer to getting you top tier cards at the time, it was really early in the year, and honestly most of those cards are all outdated at this point anyway. So it's just, I feel like these lock-ins, number one, I just don't think they're really worth it unless there's a player you really, really want to get. I do not think they're worth it. I locked in Giannis, and I will probably lock in a LeBron or something like that if there is a Bron. But in general, I just don't think these lock-ins bring it kind of alienates the player base that can't afford to pay for the top tier cards, I guess. And it frustrates even the player base that can afford to pay for the top tier cards, because what we really want is more of the Paul George, Michael Jordan, Andre Kirilenko, Jaren Jackson Jr., Joel Embiid, whatever you want to call, all those types of guys that are actually buyable without having to lock in a bunch of MT. You can sell them back later, you can grade them, potentially get some profit out of that. The fact they did those challenges when MJ, Carmelo, and Tim Duncan dropped, they got you some MT back if you scored a certain number of points with them in a game. In the first weekend after they came out, that was sick. Things like that are what we're looking for. We're not looking for a week-long lock-in set that ends in a Giannis. Giannis is a great card. People are super excited about Giannis. But people want to be able to buy Giannis from the auction house, even if he is super expensive, even if he's 300,000 MT, like Michael Jordan was, 275,000 MT. That's a good chunk. That's a good price, though, because that is an attainable amount of MT, but still a decently significant chunk, and people can sell him back later and make their MT back. And I guess I understand that that's probably going to lose 2K money if they were to make more of the top players attainable like that. But I think in the long term, it might gain people 2K money because it will bring more people into the mode if they feel like the top players and their favorite players are accessible. Because if you ask the majority of NBA fans who their favorite players are, they're going to say guys like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Giannis. And the fact that Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis, Shaq are all gatekept behind Lockins, among many other guys as well, top tier, most exciting names, are all gatekept behind these Lockins, it really takes away the excitement in the mode. And then the final thing is the gameplay, and most specifically the AI defense. I think shooting has been screwed up. I think slowdowns and speedups are way worse than they were at the beginning of the year. I think the game in general plays much worse than it did at the beginning of the year. But my biggest problem by far with the gameplay is the AI defense this year. It is absolutely ridiculous how good the CPU AI is, and it makes games less skillful than they've ever been, and it rewards players for playing a more crappy, low skill style of offense and defense than has ever been played. More backdoors, more garbage mashing, more rim running, more low skill offense. It's much harder to 300 with the way the contest system has been screwed up, but especially with the latency and again with how good the CPU off-ball defense is. The gameplay has really turned into, in my opinion, a bit of a catastrophe. After honestly being pretty good to start off the year, the AI defense was still very good, but at least when shooting was very strong and you didn't get as many speed ups and slowdowns and changes to your jump shot, you could counteract it to a certain extent by creating a little bit of space and getting yourself a good shot. Now you have to create so much space to get your shot off, and it's so hard to create space, especially against an elite level perimeter defender, especially an AI defender. And then reaching is stupid. The steal mechanic is just broken. The gameplay is just really cursed right now, and I think it's become a lot worse since the beginning of the year as well, which is a real shame. The speedups and slowdowns have really messed with it. The latency is worse than it's ever been. There are a few really significant issues in my team right now that I think really need to be addressed. We need a gameplay patch that is actually going to tone down the AI defense a little bit, and while I don't think heavies and lightlies need to be as greened as they were at the beginning of the year, the speed ups and slowdowns that we're getting on our releases that prevent me from shooting a shot that registers as open or 8% sometimes is ridiculous. It should not be completely impossible for me to make a shot because they got barely a kind of a contest, and the contest system is just kind of broken in general as well. I feel like it almost seems like Mike Wang is trying to make people play a lower skill offense, and the people who are behind the gameplay. And I guess that makes sense to a certain extent because it keeps the skill gap a little bit closer, which makes the worst player feel a little bit more engaged and able to win, which makes sense to a certain extent. But it's also kind of miserable to play, especially when you're playing against somebody that you are better than, and then you wind up losing or almost losing because of circumstances often outside of your control and a very low skill gap game. And while there is obviously still a skill gap, the competitive players and the best players are always generally going to be the best players. It just gets closer and closer and more annoying, it seems like, each year, and especially with the way they screwed up the gameplay this year. It's just, I don't know. Those are my three main issues, though. Those are, it's the lock-ins, it's the lack of incentive to really grind the game, and the outside of like Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, those are great grinds. But when you drop that type of thing, people get done with it in a day or two, and then they're done. They need more stuff to do. And if you don't have good mode rewards, they're not incentivized to go play those modes. So that's why those mode rewards are so important, because they keep people incentivized throughout the season a lot more than a 1 or 2 day event that gives you a Chris Bosh or Dwayne Wade, who are great cards, and we need more of those events. I'm hoping that with the gauntlet expiring here in a few days, we're going to get another event like that and that type of thing. But we need more, and we need better, and I think 2K can do better for sure with the content. They need to do better, and then obviously, like I said, the lock-ins are OD. The gameplay is honestly really cursed right now as well, and it's making my team a less enjoyable experience for a lot of people. I don't think I'm alone in that. So just wanted to give y'all my thoughts, though. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.